One of the best goals you'll ever see from a Nashville Predator helps lock up a 4-3 win over the Minnesota Wild. Full recap from that game. Plus, as the Preds get ready to close the season, has John Hynes done enough to warrant another year on the job? We'll talk about that today in the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast available to you wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at penaltyboxradio.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
You excuse me for just 1 second, Ann. I need to, if you don't mind, pull out a blanket. I'm going to go ahead and cover myself in this blanket. And that's because Juuso Parssinen's goal was so ice cold that it's just absolutely freezing in here this morning. Just icy. Just absolutely -0.
I mean, look, here is what's real about Juuso Parssinen. If you're going to say somebody's goal is ice cold, it is going to be Juuso Parssinen because he is just... This young man is all hockey all the time. And if you watched the goal, hopefully you stayed around long enough for his celebration, which consisted of a shrug. Like,
if you didn't, if you didn't stay around for the celebration, how fast were you ready to turn off the TV? Because that was 2 seconds later.
Let me tell you why somebody may have missed this celebration. And I'm giving credit to our great friend, Sean Smith, for that. Because as soon as that goal was scored, Sean Smith tweeted out, in 40 weeks, there's going to be a baby boom in Nashville. And every baby will be named Juuso, boy or girl. Because I'm telling you, there are no words. There are no words for that goal. With Filip Forsberg out of the lineup for so long, did we think we would ever see a goal scored like that by a Nashville Predator this season? I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it was, I mean, he made SportsCenter. It was just incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah. Just like when people list like the best shootout goals of all time, everybody points to like the Merrick Malik goal that was the exact same play. Yeah. So, I mean, there's Juuso Parssinen in a live game situation doing what's basically like considered the best shootout move of all time.
Yeah.
It was absolutely filthy. And if you haven't seen it, I urge you to go back and watch it. The best part of that, to me, Ann, was the reaction from Juuso Parssinen. Just like the camera cuts to him and there's no expression on his face whatsoever. Just kind of looks and just shrugs. Like that's like the Michael Jordan nail the 3-pointer and then turn around and do the shrug thing. Like that's going to be like one of those most iconic images in Nashville Predators history.
Filip Gustavsson, that moment of skating off and seeing Juuso just be like, that's going to relive in his subconscious, I'm afraid. After the game, of course, the media wanted to talk to the players and to head coach John Hynes about Juuso Parssinen's goal. And so I put together a little compilation of what they had to say. And in case you can't hear the questions, Yakov Trenin and Kiefer Sherwood at one point are asked if this is a shot that they would try. So take a look at what his teammates and coach had to say about this goal after the game.
You never know if that move's going to work, but I mean, when you go back and look at it, it was really good. I thought even better was his reaction after, where he just kind of shrugged his shoulders like it's just another day at the office for him. So that was pretty cool. But
that was sweet. Yeah, I don't see that too much in college. So guys like that, he's got a great skill set. I skated with him a bit when I first got here, and he was still hurt. But yeah, you could tell he had it in him. So.
And the pass from Juuso's goal there at the end, is that something you would ever try, the between the legs goal like that?
Yeah, maybe after practice.
Shock. It took everyone a moment to to storm the ice, but I mean, it's a crazy play, and just goes to show you the skill of him.
You think you would ever try that in a game?
That's not me, but hats off to him because I know it's been a long recovery for him, and he plays the game the right way and is a workhorse. So it's nice to see him get rewarded, especially with that nice one.
Yeah, thank you first. And I saw Glasser pass the puck to Dancy, and I just tried to go to the net, and I was wide open. And he made a nice pass, and I just find a way to score.
Did you practice that move a lot? Or?
No, I don't know how it came up in my mind.
No idea how it came up?
No, just try to score.
Oh, dude, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way he doesn't practice that.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Just try to score.
He's just, no. I just want to score.
I'm just trying to score. And I'm thinking if I'm trying to score, that would be so far down my list of how I was trying to score. But I'm telling you, Juuso Parssinen, first of all, just an incredible player on the ice. And you and I talked even before we started recording this episode, just how much we may have missed with this injury of being able to see what he could do. He missed, I don't know off the top of my head how many games, but several weeks. And what we could have seen from him. But also off the ice, I'm telling you, this kid is so focused on hockey. And literally, I love that they ask him about the goal and he said, "Oh, well, thank you." And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that goal. Not only did you win the game, but oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, thank you. Damn right for acknowledging me. I'm great. Yeah, I mean, the thing, we talked about Juuso Parssinen's injury. He's been out since February 23rd, just came back for that Calgary game the other day. In 44 games this year, 6 goals and 19 assists. So, you put him on a full 82 game season, and that's like a 45 to 50 point range, which is for somebody like Parssinen, who I think the Preds are kind of imagining putting their like middle 6. That's like a perfect amount of scoring. And, ever since then, we've had Luke Evangelista on an ungodly scoring pace, Tommy Novak. So I feel like it's kind of overshadowed, Juuso Parssinen and his hot start and just how well he's kind of adapted to NHL hockey since he's been here. But like you see the skill set, you see him making plays on both ends of the ice. Again, really good penalty killer. When the Preds need him to be. I mean, this is a guy that's tailor-made, I think, for what the Preds want to do, especially when you're putting a roster together of like your middle 6 people.
Yes. And the other thing that I really like about Juuso Parssinen, and I know that he is young, but he also physically matches up well in the NHL.
Yeah.
We've talked about there are some of these younger players that you're like, I'd really like for you to eat a lot of steak and hamburgers in the offseason, put some weight on, put some muscle on. Juuso Parssinen. Looking at you, Luke. Yeah. I'll bake you some cookies. But
box of cookies and a filet mignon coming your way.
And see what that does. But you look at Juuso Parssinen, and this is a young player who plays well matched up against men, man-sized NHL players. So I think he has so much going for him. Playmaking, obviously, cool under pressure, but also just physically, I think he has a tremendous amount of promise. I think he's developed where he needs to be, and of course he's still going to continue to grow his game. You heard some of the players talk about it. He took his time off the ice very seriously. He did everything that he could do to rehab and get back to the ice as quickly as possible. So what we're seeing from him on and off the ice just bodes really well for this young man and for the Nashville Predators moving forward with him.
Yeah, I think I think the Predators have stumbled into a really, really good player that they're going to be able to build around for years to come. Lots more to talk about this game in just a second. That was the headline, but there's more to get into. We got our 1 words to describe this game coming up in just a second. Plus, I think a topic that a lot of people are going to want to weigh in on. Does John Hynes deserve another chance as head coach of the Nashville Predators next season? We'll get into that. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. like Juuso Parssinen in that middle six. Well, it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. All you have to do is add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know if the part you need will fit or your money back. That's because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, Ann. The Juuso Parssinen goal, that was by far the biggest talking point
For sure.
from that game last night. But there's a lot more to like about this Preds Wild game. So let's run through it, shall we? Back and forth game early. Preds go up 2-1 in the first period, thanks to goals from Mark Jankowski, a shorthanded goal, I might add.
Come on.
And Kiefer Sherwood, a old friend, Freddie Gaudreau, tied it with 2 goals on the night. Eat your heart out, Brian Baston. And then in the third period, Yakov Trenin scored. Wild scored another goal after that, and that set up the Juuso Parssinen OT winner, which, of course, we've been talking about all episode long. And what's your one goal or one word to describe this game?
So my one word is pretty basic. My one word is fireworks. You know, when you go to a 4th of July fireworks show, you're going to see, you kind of know what you're going to see, but you have your favorite fireworks. And so as the fireworks show goes on, for me, it's the ones that they shoot up, go off, and then they kind of twinkle and fade. So you get your oohs and you get your ahs, and you definitely have, you know, the ones that everybody likes. But where it really makes an impact is the finale. And I think that's how this game was. You know, when you leave a big fireworks show, the finale is just everything at once all the time. It's just incredible. And as you leave, you're talking about the finale and you kind of forget about some of the other really pretty fireworks. That was this game. The finale, of course, Juuso Parssinen's goal. We've talked about it. I'm not tired of talking about it. I'll watch it again a couple times today because it's just that amazing. But there really were some other ooh and ah moments in this game, like you said. You know, shout out Mark Jankowski scored a shorthanded goal. That penalty kill for the Nashville Predators has been outstanding this season. That's his 3rd shorthanded goal. He has 3 of the Predators' 6 shorties.
Yeah.
So, you know, definitely something we're celebrating there. And I thought Kiefer Sherwood's goal, nothing beautiful about it, but it's one of those greasy goals, you know, rebound in front of the net, be where you need to be, make that score. I love that. The 2-on-none between Juuso Parssinen and Yakov Trenin, another great, you know, hey, make that extra pass. They knew they were going to have to move Filip Gustavsson. They did what they needed to do. So I think that there were some really good moments in this game that maybe are overshadowed by the absolutely outstanding finale. For me, this was a fireworks game.
Yeah. And very good to see too, because you know,
Yes.
one of the last 2 games. You know, to add to the fireworks, and I think to add to the spectacle of those goals or the Parssinen goal, Bridgestone was packed last night.
Yes.
And it was loud and it was good atmosphere. I don't know if it's just, you know, trying to see these last 2 games before the season ends, or if there really is some excitement about this team moving forward, moving in the right direction. But it was good to see everybody kind of come out and be, you know, supporting this team and cheering for the team, even though they're out of the playoff hunt. Because I think that was a very good, you know, fear, I think, was once the Predators are out of it, the fans were going to kind of get bored or not pay as close attention anymore. You know, so I think that was kind of a real possibility. And now, you know, the Bridgestone Arena was packed. I think that added to just how absolutely wild that last goal was too, because everybody wanted to cheer for that.
Yeah.
So it was a good, you know, I think it was good to see that arena packed last night for sure.
I think it's interesting when you think about just what you're talking about, how the fans are reacting to these last couple of games when we know the Predators are out of the playoffs. This is an unusual place for this franchise to be. They haven't been out of the playoffs. I mean, you have the whole 2002 play-in asterisk, whatever situation. Nobody really knows what to do with that situation. But this is unfamiliar territory. And as you're talking, I think, I feel like fans really are in a different place watching this Nashville Predators roster play 2 games, not going into the postseason. Can you imagine what the vibe in Bridgestone Arena would be if the team that started the season with the expectations that were surrounding that team at the start of the season were playing 2 final home games, not headed into the postseason?
Let me tell you, the Nashville area pitchfork and torches store would be having an absolute field day right now. The owner would be walking around in gold chains and a top hat. Let me tell you.
He would be, because look, even I go back and I think, what was the vibe at the beginning of this season? It was almost like fans were holding their breath. Like, okay, you made these moves to add these pieces that we all could see were maybe missing last season. Mm-hmm. But the expectation was, we've got to make a deep playoff run. And for all of the games where that didn't look like it was going to transpire on the ice, very different vibe, compared to last night, where you have a very young lineup. You have a very different lineup. You've lost key pieces, but they have battled. And I think this team, and the pivot that this franchise has had to make, it's a tough pill to swallow, but I think everybody in Nashville realized this is where this franchise is. I think everybody is very relieved, as hard as it is, that David Poile recognized it. And, there's this whole new direction, front office, roster going forward. I think there's just a better vibe among Nashville Predators fans. And I think they just so appreciate what this team did. This team could have just given up. They could have just said, hey, look, you know what? We've lost our best players. We're rebuilding. Here we go. And that's not at all the character of this team. And it's easier to get excited about a team that doesn't make the playoffs, but works their tail off, than maybe feeling like we had a team that had potential and for whatever reason couldn't quite get it done.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the big thing, is there's optimism amongst the direction of the team, as opposed to last year, a team that was, and I talked about this yesterday on the show, but there's optimism this year heading into the offseason. I think people want to jump on board, as opposed to last year, which is the team was in the playoffs, but there's a lot of people that did not like the direction the Predators were going in. So I think there's this year, it's like a storybook, Ann. Mm-hmm. It's, put whatever you want in the first, 20 chapters. But if the last part of the book absolutely delivers, if it absolutely nails it out of the park, you're going to look back and it's like, wow, that was a great book.
Yes.
If your book has a lot of great stuff going for it and you absolutely drop the ball at the end, like, I don't know, Ender's Game or Contact,
ooh,
you're going to look and it's like, that book sucked. And that, I think, is the difference between this year and last year, because last year, that terrible ending for the Nashville Predators erased a lot of good stuff that happened that season in the memories of Nashville Predators fan. This year, it's the opposite. There's a lot of really good things to be excited about, some optimism heading into the offseason that erases the fact that, wow, did the Preds really just kind of blow expectations that they had going into the season, erase the entire, first couple months where it was like, wow, this is something needs to happen here. Here's another interesting fun fact, Dan. So the Preds play the Colorado Avalanche tonight. If they win this game, they will be at 94 points and 43 wins. There's another team that had 94 points and just 41 wins. Do you know what that team is?
I have a guess, but I'm
Go
not
ahead.
sure. Is it the 2017 Cup team?
It is the 2017 Nashville Predators, the team that made the Stanley Cup. So, if the Nashville Predators beat Colorado tonight, they've already got more wins than that team had, like more outright wins. If the Predators win tonight, they'll have the same number of points as that team did. And look at the context of the last 2 months of this season.
Yeah.
For the team to do what they've done and get to that number despite everything that's happened to the team this season, that's incredible. And that, I think, is what gives a little bit of an optimistic, positive glow around this season. It's just the fact that they have done more despite getting hit in the mouth so many times.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think people are willing to accept. I think, of course, everybody's disappointed there's no postseason, but I think fans are willing to accept that that's not where we are right now, but that's where we're headed. You are seeing this team headed in the right direction. And I feel like maybe fans have felt like this team was floundering for too long since 2017. So I think there are good things ahead.
Let's talk about something, speaking of next season, Anne, that I think a lot of Predators fans have been talking about, and that's the future of one Mr. John Hynes. Now, a lot of people, let's be honest, since before the season started, have been clamoring for a coaching change for the Nashville Predators. I think even some people are still clamoring for a coaching change. Here's the thing, we talked about the Predators' strong finish, some optimism about the direction of this team. That's the question, isn't it? John Hynes has one more year left on the contract. A lot of people thought, well, he was supposed to get this team into the playoffs. It didn't happen when they had their loaded core. So that's the question. Do you think John Hynes, A, lived up to the expectations the Predators had for him this season? B, deserves another shot next year?
Here's what I'm going to say. First of all, the most important thing I'm going to say is that it is extremely difficult to have a nuanced conversation about John Hynes, because I think that there are a lot of people, right or wrong, who, when he was hired, felt like this is the wrong hire. And will continue to feel like this is the wrong hire. And they have their reasons for it. And I understand that, that's fine. But I think you have people that if John Hynes led this team to a Stanley Cup would still replace him. There's just people who don't like John Hynes. And that's okay. I get they have reasons why they feel that way. It's an interesting way that you posed the question, Nick, because you said, did he meet expectations this season? No, and yes. I don't know how anybody, coach, player, front office, I don't know how you neatly evaluate this season, because this is the tale of two seasons. And if you look at this season up to the trade deadline, there's not necessarily a lot that you would walk away from this season and say this was a success, because you have pieces in place to make a deep playoff run. I think the intention is, when this team took the ice in October, this is a team that's got to make it to the second round. I don't know that you had that, whether it was roster construction, whether it was on ice execution. The Predators didn't necessarily have that. And so that is a failure. Whether it is a failure of the roster, whether that's the failure of the coach or the front office, the players, I think everybody has a little part to own in that, including John Hynes.
Right.
But then you look at this second half of the season, and what John Hynes has been handed is a young roster, major injuries to key players, and finding ways to somehow piece together wins. And one of the complaints is he doesn't develop young players. I don't know what you do with that argument right now. I know some people will say Carl Taylor did all the work. John Hynes is reaping the benefits.
Can I jump in real quick?
I would love,
because
yeah,
I have a question for you that is kind of on the same lines of what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
There is that conversation that this is maybe more. There's two questions here.
Mm-hmm.
That this is, John Hynes only are putting players in the lineup because he has to, because he had no other choice because of his team being injured. Do you think that's the case? And the number two question that I have is how much credit do you think John Hynes deserves for what the Predators have done in the second half compared to the players themselves? Whether the players themselves have been like the development of Carl Taylor or what have you. Like, for instance, do you think he's going to be like, yeah, let's go ahead and try Luke Evangelista and Phil Tomasino on the top line?
Who are you taking out of the top line?
Even if like Forsberg and Duchesne and Johansson are healthy, do you think
who are you taking out of the top line to give Luke Evangelista a chance? Tell me what NHL coach is going to go, you know what, Filip Forsberg, love your mustache, but I'm going to give young Luke Evangelista a chance here. Who are you taking out of that top line to put in Luke Evangelista? And how is taking out Matt Duchesne or Ryan Johansson or Filip Forsberg a good NHL coaching decision to put in Luke Evangelista?
Well, I think there's a lot of people in Nashville that'll tell you that taking out Ryan Johansson for some of those people were a great decision.
But really,
but no, it's not that. But I mean, what was the complaint, especially with, let's go back to Eeli Tolvanen. I'm sorry, everybody, but let's go back to Eeli Tolvanen for a second. But, that was the thing where it's like, well, he's more of like a, second line scoring kind of person, top power play guy. The second line's full, and we don't think he fits in with the third and fourth line, so we're just gonna bench him. That was kind of the knock on John Hynes. Whereas, in the later season, you had, Luke Evangelista, Tommy Novak, Phil Tomasino, even somebody like Kiefer Sherwood. You have these people that, you're more flexible with. Okay, well, we're going to put Tommy Novak on. This is the case for, until some players got hurt. We're going to put Tommy Novak on the third line, but on the first power play, and we're only going to use him in this situation, like kind of changing what your line identities a little bit to accommodate some of these players. Do you think that happens if, do you think Tommy Novak has the season he has if Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchesne aren't hurt and, you're suddenly forced to, okay, does Tommy Novak, do we revamp the third line and have Tommy Novak do what he does there? Or is Tommy Novak like a perennial healthy scratch because, we don't really like how he plays on the third line?
I don't know. And here's the thing. Would the perspective be different if we could take Eeli Tolvanen out of the narrative?
We can also say Cody Glass at the beginning of the season too. Yeah.
Yeah, but did that not work? But did that not? And this is the thing that gets me is people say Eeli Tolvanen with John Hynes. Cody Glass went through the exact same thing. Can we agree? But
he never got put on waivers.
No, he never got put on waivers, but he got benched. But here's what I wonder. Pure speculation, friends. Pure speculation. Yeah. Don't at me. Is the way the player handled the situation perhaps different? Because look, Cody Glass played, got benched. If you ask Cody Glass, he has said that sucked. That sucked. But Cody Glass did the stuff. He did what was asked of him and got back into the lineup. And so I find it interesting that the narrative about Cody Glass and John Hynes stops with, he did it to Cody Glass. Yeah, he did it to Cody Glass, but look what Cody Glass did with that situation and look at how he finished this year. I would be curious to know, and nobody will, did those two players approach that situation differently? And John Hynes approached it the same, and maybe the outcome isn't based on Hynes. Maybe the outcome is based on the player. I don't know.
I think I pick up what you're putting down in no uncertain terms, and I do agree with you. I mean, Eeli Tolvanen has kind of gone on the Kelsey Ballerini talking about her divorce tour, where it's just every interview is like, oh, they weren't playing me right, or I tried to do everything they said, and
I didn't know what they wanted from me.
Yeah, like audible frustration, where I think Cody Glass has been more of, hey, like I wasn't right. I wasn't, doing that. And, it took for me to kind of recenter myself.
Yeah.
I do think that is kind of what you were putting down.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I think what the player does with the circumstance also affects the outcome. My question for you is, do we have this conversation as intensely about John Hynes' future in Nashville if it weren't for Carl Taylor?
Probably not. I mean, it's all, I think when you have a coach that's not super popular, I mean, but let's be fair. Nobody was really on board the John Hynes train when he got hired in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's always who's the next guy. Like, we talk about this in the NFL when it's like the quarterback is playing bad. The most popular player on the team is the backup quarterback.
True.
Because it's like, oh, he's so great, he's underrated. And then, it doesn't matter if he sucks or not. He's still like, everybody wants him to start. It's always, if there's somebody unpopular on the team, it's the next option is the most popular option. And, Carl Taylor, I don't know what the Preds plans for him are. Maybe he's the coach in waiting. Maybe, he doesn't adjust to the NHL level. We've seen that before. There's no guarantee, what the future holds for him in that regard. I just think that, when you look at this team, John Hynes has one more year left on his contract. It's a 2-year contract. Barry Trotz apparently likes him, has praised kind of what he's done with what he's had. I would be very surprised, and if John Hynes is not back as head coach of the Nashville Predators next year. Very surprised.
I agree with you. I think that John Hynes will be back. I would be very surprised if he was let go. I think it helps that Barry Trotz is taking over the reins. He knows how difficult and challenging it is to be a head coach. And I think he will view it very differently than maybe the fan base will. I agree with you. I think John Hynes will be back for one more year on his contract.
Yeah. That is certainly some intrigue. One of the storylines we'll be watching. Well, hey, and after tonight's game against the Colorado Avalanche, it's officially the offseason. And boy, on next week's shows, are we going to have some intriguing things to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot to dig into after this season, friends.
Yeah, so stay with us even as we head into the offseason, because, of course, we're going to have locker room cleanouts. We're going to have discussions on futures of certain players. The draft coming up. What are the Preds going to do? What are they going to do with all these extra picks? Some of these players who didn't get traded on the deadline, what's their future? I don't know if you saw the David Boyle quote yesterday, but that's something worth diving into. A mysterious fifth player who he wanted to trade at the deadline that didn't get traded. That's a conversation we're going to have. So these are all things that we are going to tackle starting next week on the Locked On Predators podcast. Ann, where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me on penaltyboxradio.com or on Twitter _NSMorgan. Also, be sure to follow the podcast at LO_Predators. And however you're listening to us, whether you're watching us on YouTube or streaming us on your favorite podcasting platform, hit that subscribe button so you'll always know when we got fresh content out for you. That's going to do it on this week's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. Back next week with official off-season content.